You know that moment when you're scrolling through social media at 2 in the morning and you see someone your age posting about their latest business success or vacation to Europe, and you can't help but wonder how they're affording all of this while you're sitting there calculating whether you can afford to order pizza this week. Maybe you've been there staring at your bank account balance that looks more like a phone number from the 1980s, wondering if you'll ever break free from the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Well, what if I told you there's a specific roadmap that can take you from having absolutely nothing saved to your first $10,000, and that most people who struggle financially are skipping the most crucial step in this entire process? This isn't some get-rich-quick scheme or cryptocurrency nonsense. This is a methodical approach that works regardless of how much money you're currently making, where you live, or what your background happens to be. My name is Alex. I retired from my career as an investment banker in my mid-30s, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly climb out of financial stress while others stay trapped in the same patterns for years. If you've ever wondered what it actually takes to go from zero savings to real financial progress, and more importantly, why most people never make it past the starting line, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up changing how you think about building wealth. I hate seeing people struggle, and I want to help people by giving them the knowledge needed to break free from financial struggles. Now, before we dive into this exact plan, let me paint you a picture of what most people do wrong. They hear about saving money and immediately start obsessing over cutting out their morning coffee or switching to generic cereal. They download budgeting apps, create elaborate spreadsheets, and promise themselves they're going to save $500 next month. Then reality hits. An unexpected car repair pops up, or they get invited to a friend's birthday dinner, or they just have a rough week and decide they deserve to treat themselves to something nice. Within a few weeks, they're back to their old spending habits, feeling guilty and defeated, convinced that they're just not the type of person who can save money. Sound familiar? Here's the thing that most financial advice completely misses. The reason people fail at saving their first $10,000 isn't because they lack willpower or because they're buying too many lattes. It's because they're approaching the entire process backwards. Most people start with tactics. They focus on the mechanics of budgeting and expense tracking without understanding the psychology behind what makes saving actually work. It's like trying to build a house by starting with the roof, instead of laying a proper foundation first. You might make some progress initially, but eventually everything comes crashing down. The real secret to going from $0 to $10,000 is understanding that this journey happens in 3 distinct phases, and each phase requires a completely different approach. Phase 1 is about survival and stabilization. Phase 2 is about momentum and habit formation. Phase 3 is about acceleration and optimization. Most people try to jump straight to Phase 3 without mastering the fundamentals of Phases 1 and 2, which is why they burn out and give up. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The difference between someone who successfully saves their first $10,000 and someone who doesn't isn't income level. I've seen people making $40,000 a year accumulate substantial savings while people earning 6 figures live paycheck to paycheck. The difference isn't intelligence or education either. Some of the smartest people I know are completely hopeless with money, while others who barely graduated high school have built impressive financial foundations. The real difference is mindset and system. The people who succeed understand that saving money isn't about deprivation or living like a monk. It's about becoming the type of person who naturally makes decisions that lead to wealth accumulation. And that transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through a series of small, strategic changes that compound over time. Here's where most financial gurus get it completely wrong. They tell you to start by saving 20% of your income or to build a 6-month emergency fund right away. But what happens when you're already struggling to make ends meet? What happens when saving 20% would mean you can't afford groceries or rent? You feel like a failure before you even start, which creates a psychological barrier that's incredibly difficult to overcome. The plan I'm about to share with you is different because it meets you exactly where you are right now. Whether you have negative net worth, zero savings, or you're drowning in credit card debt, this approach will work. It's designed to create early wins that build momentum and confidence, which then makes the bigger challenges feel manageable instead of impossible. But before we get into the specific steps, I need you to understand something crucial about human psychology. Your brain is wired to resist change, especially changes that feel uncomfortable or uncertain. When you try to dramatically alter your spending habits overnight, your subconscious mind interprets this as a threat and starts sabotaging your efforts. This is why most diets fail, why most exercise programs get abandoned, and why most attempts at saving money end in frustration. The solution is what psychologists call gradual exposure. Instead of shocking your system with massive changes, you introduce small modifications that feel almost effortless. Your brain doesn't perceive these micro changes as threats, so it doesn't activate its resistance mechanisms. Over time, these small changes become automatic habits, and then you can layer on additional changes without triggering that internal sabotage response. This principle is the foundation of everything I'm about to teach you. We're not going to try to transform you into a completely different person overnight. Instead, we're going to make tiny adjustments that feel manageable, and then build on those successes until saving money becomes as natural as brushing your teeth. Now, let's talk about why $10,000 is such a significant milestone. This isn't just an arbitrary number I picked because it sounds impressive. There's actually fascinating research showing that $10,000 represents a psychological tipping point where your relationship with money fundamentally changes. Before you reach this amount, every financial decision feels heavy and stressful. After you cross this threshold, you start thinking differently about risk, opportunity, and your future possibilities. When you have $10,000 saved, unexpected expenses shift from catastrophic emergencies to minor inconveniences. Car repairs, medical bills, job loss, family emergencies. These situations become manageable challenges instead of financial disasters that derail your entire life. But the psychological benefits go far beyond just handling emergencies. Having this financial cushion literally changes how your brain processes stress and makes decisions. Studies show that people with substantial savings sleep better, have lower cortisol levels, and report significantly higher life satisfaction than those living paycheck to paycheck. They're more confident in job interviews, more willing to take calculated risks, and more likely to invest in opportunities that could improve their earning potential. It's not just about the money itself. It's about the mental freedom that comes from knowing you have options. But here's what's really interesting about the $10,000 milestone. Most people who reach it don't stop there. Once you've proven to yourself that you can save this amount, your confidence skyrockets and saving larger amounts feels completely achievable. The habits and mindset shifts required to save your first $10,000 are the same ones needed to save $50,000, $100,000, or even more. This is why getting to $10,000 is so crucial. It's not just about the financial security, though that's obviously important. It's about the identity transformation that happens along the way. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's bad with money and start seeing yourself as someone who makes smart financial decisions. That shift in self-perception affects every money choice you make going forward. So what does this transformation actually look like in practice? Let me walk you through the exact three-phase system that takes you from $0 to $10,000. And I want you to pay close attention because the order of these phases is absolutely critical to your success. Phase 1 is what I call the foundation phase, and this is where 90% of people mess up before they even get started. They want to jump straight into aggressive saving mode. But that's like trying to run a marathon when you haven't even learned to walk properly. The foundation phase isn't about saving huge amounts of money. It's about proving to yourself that you can control your financial destiny, even in small ways. Here's how it works. You start by saving exactly $1 per day. Not $50 per week, not $200 per month. $1 single every single day. I can already hear you thinking that this sounds ridiculously slow and that it'll take you forever to reach $10,000 at this rate. But stick with me because there's method to this madness. That $1 per day serves multiple psychological purposes. First, it's so small that your brain doesn't perceive it as a threat to your lifestyle. You can find $1 anywhere. Skip the candy bar at checkout, make coffee at home instead of buying it once this week, find a quarter on the ground 4 times, literally anything. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is the daily practice of choosing to save instead of spend. Second, saving $1 per day creates what behavioral scientists call a commitment device. You're making a small promise to yourself every single day, and when you keep that promise, you're building evidence that you're someone who follows through on financial commitments. This might sound like new age nonsense, but the psychology here is incredibly powerful. Every time you successfully save that dollar, you're rewiring your brain to see yourself as a saver rather than a spender. Third, and this is the part most people don't realize, that daily $1 habit creates a mental anchor for all your other financial decisions. When you're about to buy something unnecessary, part of your brain remembers that you're someone who saves money every day. It creates just enough pause in your decision-making process to make you think twice about impulse purchases. After 30 days of saving $1 per day, something interesting happens. You'll have $30, which probably isn't life-changing money, but you'll also have something much more valuable. You'll have proven to yourself that you can stick to a financial commitment for an entire month. That proof of concept is worth more than the $30 itself because it becomes the foundation for everything else you're going to build. But here's where the system gets really clever. On day 31, you don't increase to $2 per day. You increase to $1.50 per day. That extra 50 cents feels completely manageable because you've already mastered the $1 habit. Your brain doesn't resist this tiny increase because it's not a dramatic change from what you're already doing successfully. You continue this pattern for the entire foundation phase, which lasts about 90 days. By day 60, you're saving $2 per day. By day 90, you're saving $2.50 per day. Over those 3 months, you'll have saved approximately $540, but more importantly, you'll have completely rewired your relationship with money. Think about what happens during these 90 days. You go from someone who never saves money to someone who saves money literally every single day. You develop the muscle memory of making conscious financial choices. You start noticing opportunities to save money that you never saw before. Most importantly, you build unshakable confidence in your ability to control your financial future. Now we move into phase 2, which I call the momentum phase. This is where things start to get really exciting because you're no longer just building habits. You're starting to see real financial progress that creates its own motivation to keep going. Phase 2 lasts about 6 months, and during this period, your savings rate accelerates significantly without feeling overwhelming. At the beginning of phase 2, you're saving about $2.50 per day, which works out to roughly $75 per month. But now that saving has become automatic, you can start optimizing your approach. Instead of just finding loose change and skipping small purchases, you can start making slightly larger adjustments to your spending patterns.
Apaya.
This is where you might decide to cook dinner at home 1 extra night per week instead of ordering takeout. Or you might realize that you're paying for 3 different streaming services but only actually watching one of them. Or you might discover that switching to a different phone plan could save you $20 per month without any change in service quality. The beautiful thing about phase 2 is that these optimizations don't feel like sacrifices because saving money has already become part of your identity. You're not depriving yourself of things you love. You're making strategic choices that align with your new priorities. And because you've already built the daily saving habit, these additional savings get automatically directed toward your $10,000 goal. During phase 2, you gradually increase your daily savings target every month. Month 4 becomes $3 per day. Month 5 becomes $4 per day. By month 9, you're saving about $6 per day, which is roughly $180 per month. Combined with the $540 you saved during the foundation phase, you're now sitting at about $1,500 in total savings. But here's what's really happening during phase 2 that most people don't recognize. You're not just accumulating money. You're developing what I call financial pattern recognition. You start noticing the difference between wants and needs in real time. You become aware of emotional spending triggers before they derail your progress. You develop creative problem-solving skills for finding ways to reduce expenses without reducing your quality of life. This pattern recognition becomes incredibly valuable because it makes phase 3 almost effortless. By the time you reach phase 3, you've spent 9 months training your brain to automatically identify opportunities to save money and redirect spending toward your goals. What used to require willpower and conscious effort now happens naturally. Phase 3 is the acceleration phase, and this is where the magic really happens. You've now been saving money consistently for 9 months. You have solid habits, strong momentum, and approximately $1,500 in the bank. More importantly, you have complete confidence in your ability to save money because you've proven it to yourself day after day for 9 straight months. During phase 3, your daily savings target jumps to about $10 per day, which is $300 per month. This might sound like a massive increase, but remember, you've spent 9 months gradually building up to this point. Your brain has adapted to each small increase along the way, so this larger jump doesn't trigger the resistance response that would have shut down your efforts if you'd tried to start here. Plus, by this point, you've become incredibly skilled at finding ways to optimize your spending. You know which expenses are truly necessary and which ones you can eliminate or reduce without impacting your happiness. You've probably discovered some new income sources or negotiated better rates on various services. The money you need to reach $10 per day in savings doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes because you've been making gradual improvements all along. Phase 3 lasts about 15 months, and during this time, you'll save approximately $4,500. Combined with the $1,500 from phases 1 and 2, you'll have $6,000 total. But we're not stopping there because the momentum you've built during these first 2 years is too powerful to waste. The final push to $10,000 happens during what I call the completion phase, and this is where most people are shocked by how natural it feels. You've now been saving money for almost 2 years. You have $6,000 in the bank, which already puts you ahead of roughly 60% of Americans. But more importantly, you've completely transformed who you are as a person when it comes to money. At this point, saving money isn't something you have to think about anymore. It's just what you do, like brushing your teeth or checking your phone when you wake up. Your brain has been rewired through months of consistent practice, and making smart financial decisions has become your default mode of operation. This is why the completion phase feels almost effortless compared to where you started. During the completion phase, you maintain that $10 per day savings rate, but now you also start getting creative with additional income sources. Maybe you sell some stuff you don't need anymore. Maybe you pick up a few hours of freelance work each month. Maybe you start a small side hustle that brings in an extra $100 or $200. The beautiful thing is that this extra income doesn't feel like work because you're motivated by how close you are to your goal. Here's something fascinating that happens during the completion phase. You start making financial decisions that your past self wouldn't have even considered. You might negotiate a better salary at work because you're not desperate and scared about money anymore. You might invest in a course or certification that could boost your earning potential because you have the financial cushion to take that risk. You might even start your first investment account because you understand that keeping all your money in savings isn't the most efficient long-term strategy. These opportunities exist because having substantial savings changes how other people perceive you and how you perceive yourself. When you're not constantly stressed about money, you carry yourself differently. You speak with more confidence. You're willing to have conversations about compensation and career growth that you would have avoided when you were living paycheck to paycheck. But let's talk about what happens in your brain during this entire process, because understanding the neuroscience behind this transformation will help you stick with the plan when things get challenging. When you first start saving that $1 per day, you're literally creating new neural pathways in your brain. These pathways connect the act of saving money with positive emotions and self-identity. Every time you successfully save that daily dollar, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine, which is the same neurotransmitter involved in forming habits around exercise, eating, and other behaviors. Over time, these neural pathways become stronger and more automatic. What started as a conscious decision that required effort gradually becomes an unconscious behavior that requires no willpower at all. This is why the gradual approach works so much better than trying to save large amounts right away. When you attempt to save too much too quickly, you're asking your brain to create massive new neural pathways overnight, which triggers stress responses and resistance. But when you increase gradually, your brain adapts to each small change without perceiving it as a threat to your existing patterns. There's also something called the compound effect happening throughout this entire process, and it goes beyond just the money accumulating in your account. Every financial decision you make during these 2.5 years reinforces your new identity as someone who's smart with money. Every time you choose to save instead of spend impulsively, every time you research a purchase instead of buying immediately, every time you negotiate a better deal or find a way to reduce an expense, you're strengthening that neural pathway. By the time you reach $10,000, you've made literally thousands of small financial decisions that all pointed in the same direction. Your brain has overwhelming evidence that you're someone who makes good choices with money, and this evidence becomes the foundation for every future financial decision you'll make. Now let me address something that might be bothering you about this timeline. 2.5 years probably sounds like forever when you're eager to change your financial situation. You might be thinking that you could reach $10,000 faster by getting a second job or cutting your expenses more dramatically right from the start. And mathematically, you'd be correct. But here's what I've learned from watching hundreds of people attempt to build their first substantial savings. The ones who try to do it faster almost always burn out and quit. They might save aggressively for 3 or 4 months, but then life happens. They get tired of the restrictions, or they face an unexpected expense, or they just lose motivation because the process feels unsustainable. The people who follow this gradual approach have a completion rate that's dramatically higher. Yes, it takes longer, but they actually finish what they start. And more importantly, they develop permanent financial skills and habits that serve them for the rest of their lives. Someone who saves $10,000 in 6 months by working 80 hours a week goes back to their old patterns as soon as they stop working those extra hours. Someone who saves $10,000 using this gradual method has fundamentally changed how they think about and handle money. There's also a psychological principle called the endowment effect that works in your favor throughout this process. The endowment effect describes how people value things more highly once they own them. As your savings account grows, you become increasingly protective of that money because it represents all the effort and discipline you've invested over months and years. This protection instinct actually makes you better at avoiding unnecessary expenses because your brain starts calculating whether potential purchases are worth reducing your hard-earned savings. That expensive dinner out doesn't just cost $60 anymore. It costs $60 plus the psychological pain of watching your savings balance decrease. This internal cost-benefit analysis happens automatically once you've built substantial savings, and it's incredibly effective at preventing financial backsliding. Let me share something that might surprise you about what happens after you reach $10,000. Most people assume they'll feel this massive sense of accomplishment and then maybe relax their saving habits. But the opposite actually happens. Reaching $10,000 creates what psychologists call a peak experience, which is a moment of intense satisfaction and achievement that you want to recreate. Instead of feeling like you can finally stop being disciplined with money, you feel energized to set even bigger financial goals. Maybe you decide to save for a house down payment, or start investing seriously for retirement, or build up enough savings to take a sabbatical from work and pursue something you're passionate about. The $10,000 becomes a launching pad rather than a finish line. This is why focusing on your first $10,000 is so crucial, even if your ultimate financial goals are much larger. It's not really about the $10,000 itself. It's about proving to yourself that you can achieve ambitious financial goals through consistent action over time. Once you have that proof, there's no limit to what you can accomplish financially. But I want to be completely honest with you about the challenges you'll face during this journey, because pretending it's going to be easy won't help you succeed. There will be months when you feel like you're not making progress fast enough. There will be times when unexpected expenses force you to use some of your savings, and you'll feel like you're starting over. There will be moments when you're tempted to give up because the goal feels too far away. The key to pushing through these challenges is remembering that this process is about much more than just accumulating money. Every day that you stick with your savings habit, you're becoming a different person. Every time you choose long-term financial security over short-term gratification, you're building character and discipline that will serve you in every area of your life. The person who successfully saves their first $10,000 isn't just someone with more money in the bank. They're someone who has developed the ability to delay gratification, think long-term, and follow through on commitments even when it's difficult. These are the exact same qualities that lead to success in careers, relationships, health, and every other important area of life. So when you're struggling with motivation during month 8 or month 15, remember that you're not just working toward a financial goal, you're working toward becoming the type of person who achieves their goals consistently. And that transformation is worth far more than $10,000. So there you have it. The exact 3-phase system that takes you from zero savings to $10,000, and more importantly, transforms you into the type of person who naturally builds wealth. This isn't about complicated investment strategies or finding some secret loophole in the financial system. It's about understanding that lasting financial change happens through consistent daily actions that compound over time. The foundation phase proves you can save. The momentum phase builds unstoppable habits. The acceleration and completion phases turn those habits into real financial progress. Most people skip the foundation phase because it feels too slow, which is exactly why most people never reach their financial goals. Remember, this journey is about becoming someone new, not just accumulating money. The person who saves their first $10,000 has developed skills and mindsets that will serve them for life. They've rewired their brain to make smart financial decisions automatically. They've proven they can delay gratification and follow through on long-term commitments. If you're serious about changing your financial future, start tomorrow with that first dollar. Not next Monday, not next month, tomorrow. Your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. And 2.5 years from now, when you're looking at that $10,000 balance, you'll realize this was the moment everything changed.